Hey, hey, hey. Happy Halloween. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, gaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So happy Halloween, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, October 31st, 2024. This is live show number 1117. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I'll usually pontificate about a topic related to our hobby. Not so much tonight. What we do here on the Dispatch, every month we'll do an AMA, an Ask Me Anything. It's usually on the final show of the month. So that's what's cooking tonight. So it's going to be a bit of a Halloween Ask Me Anything. And some folks have actually emailed some questions, so I'll be tackling those in just a bit. Should also mention, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, once again, I am at a quest I say, for 15,000 subscribers to the channel before the calendar turns to 2025. We're not that far away. A few more this month than usual, a few more next month than usual. I guess I should say in November, not necessarily this month. And I think we can hit that 15,000. So if you're watching and you're not a subscriber, why not? Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't hurt. I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to reach into your pocket for something, anything. So there you have it. Also, since it's a live show, that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, comment, well, as long as you're a subscriber to the channel and you have been for at least 10 minutes, you can fire away. I will do my best to respond. First out of the gate tonight is Wallona's Cave. Semper Buffos with us, as is Kathy Evans, Jose Fernandez, and Michael Burrell. I would take a guess. We are probably going to see a bit quieter chat than normal because it's Halloween. And I know as of just a few moments ago is when our cutoff for the kids to come trick-or-treating around here ended. But further out west, they've still got time. They've still got time to be out there. So I wouldn't be shocked if maybe we don't see, say, like the Madman popping on in. Although he's not west. But we already know that the Madman sets up some pretty phenomenal decorations at his house. I should also point out, I was going to share a video of the front yard of my brother's house. Really cool, all set up. My nephew said, okay, I'll send you a video. Sends me a video. And I thought, what did he shoot this in? 144p? It's awful. I'm like, well, guess I won't be sharing that tonight. I don't know. It freaks me out when people are supposedly really tech savvy and they're really not. Kachansky is with us, as is Pete Strakulich, Kevin R. Smith, and Sean O'Donnell. I'll take a wild guess, maybe, just maybe, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is hanging out in chat, lurking in the shadows. She is one of our chat moderators. So if she is hiding in the shadows, behave. Behave. Zoran 1 is also popping on in. So Sean O'Donnell said Jeff needs more PS. I'm not sure what PS might be. I don't know. I just don't know. All righty. So let's jump on into the news because 2 weeks remain in the backer kit to bring the Ars Magica Definitive Edition to the masses. I've got the skinny from Atlas Games. The extensively detailed, award-winning role-playing game of Myth and Magic, widely regarded as the benchmark for Magic systems, the pioneer of troop-style, story-focused role-playing games. In Ars Magica, I know, a lot of times I like to say Ars Magica. I don't, I guess that's not how it's pronounced. The superstitions of the common folk are all true. Fairies drink milk left on doorsteps. Well, that's better than drinking baby's blood, I guess I would say. Demons roam the countryside in search of vulnerable souls, and wizards wield magic beyond the ken of normal mortals. Step into the world of the Magi of the Order of Hermes and their companions. The definitive edition of the award-winning Ars Magica RPG is the ultimate role-playing experience. Delve into the lives of powerful wizards and their companions in a world brimming with magic and mystery. This flexible, deeply built world supports sagas that are historically accurate or fantasy-based, epic or small scale, political or personal. Fans of medieval history create games heavy on historical accuracy, while fantasy lovers spin tales featuring the supernatural realms. Fans of political intrigue focus on inter-house conflict between groups of magi. Whatever your gaming preference, your stories will be the stuff of legend. Ars Magica is a troop-style storytelling game. Players take the role of not only powerful magi, but also the companions and grogs who serve them. Each of these characters contributes to the communal covenant where they all live and to the story itself. Players work together to tell the story of their covenant. This tale can span decades or centuries of game time. It might be heroic, tragic, or both in turn. The covenant could influence the fates of their small corner of the world or alter the history of all mythic Europe. There is a short Kickstarter video. I will mention the music would have flagged me for copyright violation. So I have tried to strip out the music as best I can while leaving the rest intact. I do want to show you the video because you'll get a far, far better look at this definitive edition than simply the images I'm sharing right now. So let's kick back and give it a peek.
Imagine a medieval world where superstitions are true. Fairies drink milk left on doorsteps. Demons prowl the countryside searching for souls. Holy relics channel miracles. Wizards wield power beyond mortal imagining. Step into Ars Magica's mythic Europe, where legends come to life. The definitive edition of the award-winning Ars Magica RPG is the ultimate role-playing experience. Delve into the lives of powerful wizards and their companions in a world brimming with magic and mystery. This deluxe release is a treasure trove of over 600 full-color pages inside a luxurious leatherette hardcover plus the poster map, handy reference guide, and the story guide screen, all housed inside a premium slipcover case. Ars Magica boasts the most flexible magic system ever designed. Tired of memorizing the same old spells? If you can dream it, you can cast it in Ars Magica. Imagine your own spell effect and create it spontaneously, using combinations of your magical skills. Casting Orb of Fire is as simple as combining Creo Ignum. Craft unique characters reflecting the rich diversity of Mythic Europe who grow with your saga. From powerful magi to loyal companions and fearless grog protectors, they all live and work together in medieval covenants. You'll play them all with Ars Magica's troop-style play, picking the best-equipped characters for each adventure. The lifetime of a magus is centuries. Create your own history of Mythic Europe over the ages as supernatural forces impact historical events. Blend medieval history and myth, dig into historical what-ifs, and make them real in your saga. Whether you love daring adventure, historical accuracy, supernatural realms, or political intrigue, Ars Magica offers endless possibility. Get your copy of Ars Magica Definitive Edition now, and turn your stories into the stuff of legend.
This project is fully funded. You can reserve a copy of the slipcase set for a pledge of $149.95. If you want to just score the PDFs alone, you can do so for a pledge of $39.95 through November 14th. Expected delivery on this is next summer. One thing I did notice is it appears that this new definitive edition is going to have a little bit of a different art style than previous editions, because all that artwork we were seeing in that video, okay, let's rephrase that. Much of that artwork that we saw in that video is actually from the previous edition, and you can tell it's just a different art style. It's more line art than anything else. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, hey, I kind of noticed that. Sort of kind of reminds me a little bit of like Harn as far as that art style, whereas looks like this new definitive edition is going to be a little more digital, I guess I would say. But there's some discussion in chat about if anyone's played this. I have not. I have never even read it. I've never had an opportunity to. I actually, got to be honest, I've never really had any relationship with Atlas Games. We did review a couple of their games way back in the day, but that was Elliot. So Elliot kind of handled Atlas Games stuff like Gloom and Cthulhu Gloom that he did reviews of. I would be very curious about this, to be honest. I have always heard people are very impressed by this. Some people claim it's their absolute favorite fantasy role-playing game. Interesting. So Sean O'Donnell says, next I'm going to say Mouse Ritter. Okay. Mouserita! It just makes me laugh. Lona's Cave says they really enjoyed the magic system. Kevin R. Smith says they've read at least some of the third or fourth edition. They're not sure which. Wallona's Cave also points out this is going to be a behemoth of a book. Zorax Oran says they've got a couple of books, very beautiful game. And it sounds like Kevin R. Smith has actually backed this backer kit at the PDF level. I will say there is, I think it was about $1,200 as far as the pledge level that will get you everything. So everything that's currently in print, everything that's going to be available through this Kickstarter as well. I thought that was pretty wild. You don't see that too often. And there actually is quite a lot that's out there as far as adventures and supplemental material. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Moon Right Along, now out in print and PDF from my friends over at Troll Lord Games, is the Amazing Adventures 2E Chronicle Keeper's Guide. Here's what I know. This book is your companion for running the world's greatest gun-toting, sword-wielding, starfighter flying, gadget-making, super-powered science, sorcery, horror, multi-genre role-playing game powered by the Siege engine. Herein, you will find additional character and rules options, streamlined firearms rules, advanced vehicle combat rules, cinematic unarmed combat, rules for dark pulp sorcery, monsters as player characters, and so much more. You'll discover advice on a wealth of tropes for different types of games, from weird westerns to cosmic horror, urban fantasy to space opera, and far beyond. Running a game, creating adventures at work, and how to find your own path to becoming a great chronicle keeper. This is, of course, a companion for the Amazing Adventures Player's Handbook, which I talked about being in print and PDF yesterday. And it's also considered to be a companion to the Castles and Crusades Castle Keeper's Guide. Interesting. Now, one of the big selling points right now of this second edition of Amazing Adventures is that it is 100% compatible with the reforged Castles and Crusades, which is hopefully arriving before the end of the year. I know that is the game plan. I know the game plan for Troll Lord Games is to have reforged available prior to Christmas. Will that be the case? Don't know, but that's what they are shooting for. They want to be able to have people, gift Castles and Crusades to their family and friends for the holiday season. So we shall find out. But I guess Amazing Adventures was not completely compatible with Castles and Crusades previously, which I thought was kind of interesting because it uses the Siege engine, but I guess it used a modified Siege engine. And I do believe that Amazing Adventures is written by someone other than the Chenaults. So we'll find out because, I shared the real quick peek that I've actually got the Player's Handbook. I also have this as well. So stay tuned. I will be tackling these hopefully in November. I'm pretty sure I will. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to at least get a first look video out there. So we'll find out. Flint Fireforge is with us. Welcome aboard. Let's move on to our next news piece because Pelgrane Press has teamed with Bundle of Holding for an offering featuring the Dracula dossier. And I've got the deets on the deal. Agent! We've been cleared to resurrect the December 2017 Dracula dossier bundle. The Dracula dossier is an epic, improvised horror espionage campaign for Night's Black Agents. Star designer Kenneth Height's Gumshoe System tabletop role-playing game of burned spies versus vampires from Pelgrane Press. In 1893, a visionary spy master in the British Naval Intelligence Department tried to recruit the perfect asset, a vampire. Operation Edom contacted Count Dracula in Transylvania, set up a safe house and headquarters in England, and arranged transit. Then it all went wrong. Dracula betrayed his minder and double-crossed NID. British intelligence hunted him down on his home ground and terminated him with 2 knives and extreme prejudice. Or so they thought. Dracula lives. Now it's up to you to finish the job. Funded by a November 2014 Kickstarter campaign, the Dracula Dossier series follows in the fully improvisational English, Jeff, use it. Path of the award-winning The Armitage Files campaign for Trail of Cthulhu. Players follow leads in the margins of Dracula Unredacted, a rare edition of Bram Stoker's masterpiece that reveals the terrifying truth behind the fiction. Players choose which leads to track, which Scarlet Trail to follow. The director, using the clear step by step techniques in these PDFs, improvises a suitably blood soaked thriller in response to their choices. Together, you create your own unique story for one of the greatest role playing game campaigns ever published. Their words, not mine. Just pointing that out. This comprehensive revival once again brings you the entire Dracula dossier line. For just $19.95, you'll get all 3 titles in this revived offers Agent Collection, which have a retail value of $54, as DRM-free PDFs, including the Night's Black Agents Core Rulebook, Dracula Unredacted, and the Edom Field Manual. If you pay more than the current threshold price of $30.69, you'll level up and also get this revival's entire Director Collection with 6 more titles worth an additional $83, including the indispensable Dracula Dossier Director's Handbook, plus the Dracula Dossier deck of non-player character cards, the Edom Files Scenario Collection, the Hawkins Papers with more than 30 beautiful player handouts, The Thrill of Dracula, Kenneth Height's analysis of Dracula portrayals in novels and films, and as a convenience to the bundle of holding customers, they're also going to add the Van Helsing letter, which is a quick start adventure, Pelgrane Press, distributed back in 2016 for free RPG Day. These savings run through November 13th, and 10% of your payment after gateway fees will be donated to the Diana Jones Award Emerging Designer Program. Yes. Always heard really good things about the Dracula dossier. Always. But I don't know if I would run it. I got to be honest. Because from what I've heard, it's more ideas for running an adventure as opposed to an adventure campaign. That's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true. So like Dracula Unredacted is Dracula, but annotated, as far as I understand, with like fictional information about, oh, this is what really happened, right? So I'm guessing like Jonathan Harker is a British naval intelligence agent, right? He's not just a solicitor going to Transylvania. I mean, this is just stab in the dark because I've honestly never had an opportunity to check this out. Kind of cool, though. Kind of cool bundle. You get just about, in fact, I think it is everything that was ever released for the Dracula dossier. And it's $31, basically. A few cents less than that. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. So we do have kind of a Halloween horror theme going here at the moment, because now available from Monte Cook Games is the Magnus Archives role-playing game. And I've got the scoop. Deep within the archives of the Magnus Institute, dark things are stirring. An odd figure beckons drunken pubgoers into an alleyway, never to be seen again. A meat grinder somehow compels its users to merrily feed it their own limbs. A late-night subway train burrows itself into the earth, all but crushing its lone occupant. For 200 years, the Magnus Institute has quietly collected statements like these from people of all walks of life, detailing their personal experiences with the supernatural. Your organization is dedicated to cataloging and researching these incidents, but it's becoming clear they aren't as isolated as they first appear. There are connections between them, connections that suggest existential dangers to the world as we know it. How will your team combat them, when simply coming to understand these dark forces threatens to bring you under their influence. Because when you stare into the archives, something starts to stare back. Work alongside Jonathan and Martin, Basira, Daisy, and the rest of the staff of the Magnus Institute, or create your own branch of investigators. Encounter the not them, the anglerfish, or the man upon the stair. Learn the truth of the books of Jürgen Leitner, The Coffin That Is Also a Pin, and The People's Church of the Divine Host. The Magnus Archives role-playing game includes dozens of creatures and NPCs to encounter, including beloved and feared NPCs from the Magnus Archives podcast, such as Jonathan Sims, Elias Bouchard, and Jürgen Leitner. Complete rules tailored for a story-based tabletop role-playing experience in the eerie world of the popular The Magnus Archives horror podcast. An innovative process for creating witness statements to launch each adventure, investing the entire gaming group, and creating an entirely new experience each session. Unique mechanics for handling fear and stress, and for the remarkable changes that dealing with dark forces can inflict on a character over time. The 384-page hardcover is available now. It does carry an MSRP of $74.99. You can grab just the PDF over at Drive-Thru RPG for $24.99. So, got to be honest, I do not know if the hardcover includes the PDF. Not sure if it does or it does not. There was no indication that it was included with it. And the reality is, I don't know if Monte Cook Games includes a PDF with a physical book purchase. So there is that. Xerax1 says Monte Cook Games feel like they're just throwing out games. There's no soul except for the old gods. W. Forge says, yikes, $80. As I said before, I'm going to kind of shy away from commenting on pricing. But yes, that did strike me as well. It was like, well, it's $75, but still. 75, 80, close enough, right? So Monte Cook Games has this thing where they seem to now be on a kick where they like adapting podcasts. The Old Gods of Appalachia, and also this. I'll be very honest, I am not familiar with this podcast. I've never listened to it. I did try to give the Old Gods of Appalachia a listen. It wasn't my bag. It wasn't my bag of tricks. And I think part of it was because I started at the beginning, which tends to be how I do these things, right? So I started listening to it, and you could tell that they had gone back to their early episodes and really tried to monetize them. And I mean, I knew nothing about it. Hear about 5-10 minutes of the podcast, and all of a sudden they're, taking an ad break. I was like, oh, support the podcast, and so on and so forth, which I'm sure that they do with current releases, right? So I was kind of like, yeah. But like, most of these kind of podcasts, I'm sure it takes a few episodes before it starts to hit its stride. Just like, as an example, I'm a big fan of lore. I enjoy Aaron Menke's lore. But I went back and started at the beginning when I began listening to it. I think there were about 40 episodes when I came on board. And first handful of episodes, it really did take a while to get used to Aaron Menke's delivery, because it was a little unusual. Not so much nowadays, but I think it's more along the lines of he's changed his delivery a little bit. And I'm also used to Aaron Menke's voice. So, but it is an excellent podcast. Really, really good. But it's not, like an ongoing story or anything like that. It's all every episode is kind of an odd tale. Let's see. Zoraxoran asks how many pages? It is 384 pages. I will say the PDF price at Drive-Thru RPG, that's not bad. $24.99 for a nearly 400-page PDF. I'd say that's a solid price. I really would. All right, let's move on to our final news piece because Cubicle 7 Games has released a new supplement for Warhammer 40K Imperium Maledictum. I've got the latest on Diagnostica Obscuris. And I have to laugh because Diagnostica is misspelled on a lot of artwork and stuff that was released for this, as well as the image that's being used on Drive-Thru RPG. I was actually able to track down the correct cover, but I just had to chuckle. It's like, oh, oops. It's like, no, it's D-I-A, not D-A-I. It's not that big a deal, but still. Hidden deeds, secret victories, and desperate fights all come at a cost, and very few servants of powerful patrons avoid injury for long. Some are lucky and may find their patron provides them with access to Medicaid services denied to most citizens of the Imperium, while others might find their patron a little too eager to improve a shattered limb with a cold augmetic replacement. Others are left to fend for themselves, expected to be present for duty with whatever wounds they received already taken care of. These unfortunates must submit themselves to the tender care of whatever Medicaid technicians they can afford, from dubious halfway hacks to prestigious specialists in the biological arts. Diagnostica Obscuris provides 3 fully fleshed out NPCs, each a self-proclaimed expert Medicaid practitioner, each with their own specialties, rates, and dubious bedside manners, as well as a detailed background, a bevy of plot hooks, and more. Noxia Vex, a back alley sawbones with a clinic in the depths of Hive Rekerth, is willing to treat anyone with enough solars, from serial infractionists to inquisitorial acolytes looking to keep a low profile. For those without the solars, she has been known to exchange treatment for a favor to be called in at a later date. Though most agree it's usually better to pay than be in her debt for long. Karzinth Halfhand is one of the most promising Medicaid technicians to grace Asterion in years. With the skill for bionic replacements and attracting wealthy clients, Karzinth should be enjoying a quality of life few can only dream of. Nevertheless, he is a deeply paranoid man, haunted by a past he refuses to discuss. Genitor Iridir 5-4 is a Magos Bialis with superlative skill, capable of repairing almost any wound. His operating theater, a temple to the biological arts. Assigned to the Grand Docks of Hargis and sworn to serve House Carvonen, he nevertheless pursues his own interests at any opportunity. Each NPC is a useful non-player character to drop into an ongoing campaign, as player characters are notoriously prone to injury, but each is also suitable as a patron and the starting point of a new campaign. Diagnostica Obscuris is packed with interesting plot hooks and mission ideas, making it the perfect addition to any Imperium Maledictum GM's toolkit. This 23-page PDF can be had right now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $4.99. Sweet. We just talked about a new release for Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory yesterday. And now granted, this is a PDF only 23-page release. But Imperium Maledictum's getting some love. Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you. Pete Strakulich says, nobody does role-playing game news like I do. 2 thumbs up. Thank you kindly. And Zorex Rand says, Cubicle 7, always quality. Very cool. Very cool. Coco B is hanging with the gang. Yes, W Forge. As I had mentioned before, was like, yikes, $80. I should have said hello to W Forge first, though. I don't think I did. Alrighty, that's it for the news tonight. Of course, got to point out that I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. And the gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG, Dungeon Masters Guild, Storytellers Vault, Wargame Vault, what have you, any of those One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, remember I am on a quest for 15,000 subscribers to the channel before the calendar turns to 2025. So if you are watching and you are not subscribed, subscribe. Plus, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. And you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. No sodium, no caffeine. And some of you fine folks, pop on by paypal.me and make not small donations, such as our good friend of the show, the Madman, Gustavo Carvalho, Cassiopeia Nebula, Roger Perdome, Demetrios Okonomu, Jeremy Kerr, Marcus George, and John Webster, as well as Craig Watkins. Thank you very, very much. Thanks to any of you out there who use the banners and or visit paypal.me/thegaminggang. And if you tell your friends about the channel, tell them about thegaminggang.com. It is all appreciated. Always appreciated. So Michael Burrell says, no taste. It's fine. I've drank diet soda for decades, so I'm used to it. If I get stuck with like a Coke or a Pepsi, I'm like, whoa, not the caffeine, because I'm fine with caffeine, but the sugar is like, wow, whoa, that's sweet. And then funny enough, my mom refuses to drink. Well, okay, she'll drink Coke in a pinch, but she's a Pepsi drinker, and no way will she touch like a Diet Pepsi, Diet Coke, anything like that. It's like, All righty then. So tonight is our October Ask Me Anything. It's an AMA. I do have some emails that had been sent in with some questions. Of course, if you've got some questions out there, start hitting me up with them in a few moments. Don't start hitting me up with them yet. But I do want to point out that we do have MetroNet coming tomorrow to set up our internet. Man, I spent an hour and a half with it, Xfinity, on the phone last night, and I was like, this phone is way too expensive for me to just throw across the room. So they had called my dad. They said, oh, hey, it was like the retention department, and I guess they wanted to make him an offer. I talked about this a little bit last night. And it was like, oh, for crying out loud. So they called me today. Their technical support department called me today to see how our service was. Because if you watched yesterday, I mentioned that they had texted us saying that they were going to have a crew out here from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. So there would be no internet. And I wasn't sure if it was, oh, they're coming to fix the problem that's here, you know, outside this house, or if they were just in the neighborhood doing whatever. So it must have been they came to fix our problem, which little damn late on that, isn't it? So this guy's like, oh, I didn't know you canceled the service. It's like, yep. And then you guys uncanceled the cancellation and I recanceled it. So Pete Strakowicz says they're looking to pick up Completely Unfathomable in hardcover, I guess, for Dungeon Crawl Classics soon on drive-thru. Make sure to use the link. Thank you very much. Michael Burrell says, have ever tried Pepsi Max? It's supposed to taste like Pepsi and has no sugar. She won't. I mean, I have drank, I should say, Pepsi Max. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, you know, she won't touch it. Tell you, she will not touch it. And to be very honest, it doesn't taste like Pepsi. Because I can tell the difference between the two. But as I wet my whistle once again. So we're going to get on into the Halloween AMA in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
We are the Intermission Quartet.
Some quartet.
We sell refreshments at the Met.
At the Met?
So if you should want to get delicious
ice cream,
soft drink, popcorn,
candy. Candy, I like candy. Tastes just dandy and comes in handy when I fight the bull.
A popcorn's puffy, so crisp and fluffy. We all eat popcorn until we're full. Oh, how I love the soft drinks here. They taste as good as the lager beer. And now our operetta ends. We'll have an intermission, friend.
You know, the weirdest things happened to me, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I mean, here I am stocking up for Halloween. I got my steaks, got my ribs. Then when I asked the stock boy where the Coors Light is stacked, he points me to the Coors and Coors Light Halloween display, and I'm on it. Whoa, it's like deja vu. Whoa, it's like deja vu. Look for it where you buy beer. I shop here because they slash prices. There goes another one. Happy Halloween, darling.
I can't believe it's finally here. Halloween, the best night of the year.
Oh, yeah. All those people out partying, trick-or-treating, eating M&Ms. Maybe we should stay in tonight. Here.
Scary movie?
Done.
Ted, what are you doing? I was trying to get these Skittles, but I got stuck. Maybe I should try.
I say go for it. If you get stuck, I'll help you get down. Moments later, I did help Billy get those Skittles, which sparked a lifelong friendship.
No way!
Sharing special surprises.
Matching motorcycles?
2 bikes for 2 bros. Magical memories. So I got 8 legs, and I'm not a spider.
Yeah.
If it's a spider, I swear. And endless laughter. So I was like, arrest me then. I'm just kidding. I ate the kid. I ate the other little boy, too.
Trap the rainbow. Taste the rainbow.
What are those spooks doing? Serving Wilkins tea. It's out of this world. Finest tea served, ghost to ghost.
God, it knows I'm here.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen. Now look, Doc, we're buddies, okay? But don't try to convert me.
I'm trying to prepare you. My name's Marquis, Dr. Marquis, a scientist interested in the supernatural. The unnatural, if you like. I came to Hill House to find the key to another world. Assisting me in this exploration of the unknown was Eleanor, Nell, who could look back into the past, and Theo, something of a witch, who could see into the future. This is Luke, who didn't believe in anything, until evil, patient and waiting, made him change his mind.
Stop it! God. God. Whose hand was I holding?
How many of us take seriously the things we cannot or do not want to understand, simply because we are afraid?
Eleanor, your paw!
Did you hear me calling?
Oh, this house. You have to watch it every minute.
The Haunting was produced and directed by Robert Wise, brilliant producer of West Side Story. The stars consist of a cross-section of top talent in the world of entertainment. Julie Harris, Claire Bloom, Richard Johnson, Russ Tamblyn. What does it take to convince you that the dead do not always rest in peace? That some houses, like Hill House, are born bad?
I have to say that Skittles commercial just cracks me up every time. Every time. Nah, I ate them. And I ate the other little boy too. Good stuff. Good stuff. And The Haunting. Awesome movie. Excellent movie. Game Cat is with us. Welcome. Happy Halloween. Very cool. Very nice. Very nice. W Forge is talking about other streamers on Twitch. Geez, thanks a lot. No, kidding. I'm joking. Anyway, so tonight's just an AMA. Tonight we're just bumming around. We're hanging out. We're not going to go too late. But if you got any questions you'd like to toss out there, by all means, feel free to. I have received some by email already, and I figured we'll kind of kick off with that. So one of the first questions I've got is, what are some of my favorite horror movies? And I'll be very honest, I don't watch tons of horror films. I probably watched more when I was in my teens and 20s. Now, I don't have an issue with them. I mean, okay, so I'll point out that movies that are just about gore or like torture porn sorts of movies, no thanks. You could tell me, oh, yeah, oh, that's a great movie. I'm still not going to be very interested in checking something like that out. But, well, give you a great example. Some people consider the movie Seven to be like a detective thriller. To me, that's a horror movie, ladies and gents. For one, it's got a very oppressive vibe to it that you just know bad things are going to happen. And it just builds. It's a great movie. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite horror movies. In fact, I just shared a trailer for one of my favorite horror movies, The Haunting. I love that movie because you don't see anything. There's no ghost that pops out and says boo or anything like that. There aren't any monsters. It's all that just weird things happening. Now, granted, there are some scenes where things are going on where it's like, whoa, Um, but no, you never see any ghosts or anything like that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. The remake they did, awful. Just awful. It's like, okay, so the novel is actually really well done too. Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House is excellent. Really, really good. So is, I'm trying to remember the title of it. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. It's probably been about 20 years since I read it. That's why I'm not kind of like, Michael Burrell says, but Morgan Freeman's soothing voice calms down all the terror. I would say I don't think he calms it. I think he lulls you into a false sense of everything's going to be all right. I think that is intentional. So Grandpa John is with us in chat. He's got a question. We'll get to that. I'll tackle that one. But yeah, favorite horror movies, I would say John Carpenter's The Thing. One of my all-time absolute favorites. I am a John Carpenter fan. Now, granted, there's some movies that he's done that I'm like, I like Halloween. I mean, you figure that was what kind of launched the slasher movies. So, but I'm not a slasher movie fan, but first movie, first Halloween, I liked. I also, I think an underappreciated horror movie from John Carpenter is Prince of Darkness. In fact, I would have shared a trailer for Prince of Darkness during the month, but copyrighted material for it. I was like, damn. And there were actually a few different trailers and I tried each of them and I was like, no. I'm like, damn it. Crap. That's a good one. In the Mouth of Madness, classic. It is Carpenter's homage. Oh, it's kind of his love letter, I guess, to H.P. Lovecraft. Bizarre movie. Really bizarre movie. Some people really dislike it. They think it's a mess. I don't think so. I don't think it's, and it's got a real downer of an ending too, which fits right in with the Lovecraft motif. So there is that. Reanimator, I gotta say, it was so different when we went and saw it. I mean, Elliot and I went and saw it, and there were scenes where we were laughing our asses off, and then scenes where we were like, whoa, 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 whoa. So yes, and Jeffrey Combs makes that movie. I mean, obviously enough. We were talking about The Frighteners last night. That's one of my favorites too. Jeffrey Combs is in that also. And as kind of a nutbag, like FBI agent or whatever. So Chris Lundgren's with us in chat asking if I've seen the new version of Salem's Lot, which is on Max. I was talking to my brother about it Monday when I was over there, and he had seen it. I have not seen it yet. And in my opinion, I still think the 1978, is it 78, 79? Salem's Lot that Tobe Hooper, who, in my opinion, personally, I think is really overrated as a director, but yeah, it's just me. He did it for, if I remember right, I think it was CBS. And David Soul's in it. I still think that's the best of the like adaptations. Once again, have not seen it, have not seen the new one, but I did see the one that Rob Lowe did. I think if I remember correctly, that was for TBS, TNT, one of the two. And I liked it, but they made some changes. And some of the other questions I got were like, what are my favorite horror novels or comics? What are my favorite horror TV shows? So I guess the David Soul Salem's Lot goes into the TV show answer. But I'm telling you, the whole let me in, let me in. Now I can't remember the kid's name. You know, the dead kid is floating by the window. Let me in. Scratching at the window. Freak the shit out of people. There you go. Coco B says that first Salem's Lot scene with the kid in the window scared everyone in their grade level. Yes. And interestingly enough, I had read Salem's Lot just before it was on TV, because this was back at a time when like you went to the grocery store and they had magazines and books. They would actually have a section at your favorite grocery store. And I remember it was on a spinner rack. And I saw it and it had the Nosferatu-ish image on the front. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I looked at the back and I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I bought it because, as I've mentioned before, when I was 10, 11, I was reading books I probably should not have been reading. Well, I shouldn't say probably. Books I should not have been reading. So we're talking like Peter Straub's Ghost Story and all of Stephen King stuff once I read Salem's Lot. And it was funny because at that point in time, I think it was like 7th grade, 6th, 7th grade, something like that. And I would do book reports. We had to do book reports. And I would do book reports on like Stephen King stuff. And other kids were doing book reports on the Hardy Boys, Scholastic books, stuff like that. I was like, okay, all righty. Michael Burrell says something wicked this way comes is really suspenseful without being really scary. Yeah, I would say, and I like Ray Bradbury, I would say both the novel as well as the movie adaptation is more dark fantasy than horror. Especially the novel. The novel is really about nostalgia. And I mean, there's, and funny enough, Bradbury could write some pretty scary stuff. In fact, I just shared on the Spooktacular a radio program that was adapted from one of his stories. And it's pretty creepy. So Bradbury was not only a science fiction author, he wrote some horror. What is the story? I think it's called The Jar. Really bizarre. It's really bizarre about the thing that's in the jar. If I remember right, I think it's I don't know. I was going to say I think it's in the Illustrated Man, but I don't think it is now that it might not even be part of a well-known Ray Bradbury collection. Semper Buffo asks, did I get a printed copy of Star Trek Adventures 2nd edition core rulebook for review? No. Things with Modifius Entertainment have fallen off a cliff. So the only thing I can think of So real quick, and then we'll get back to like the Halloween AMA. They were using the third-party marketing company that Free League Publishing is now using. And then right around, I think it was about January or so, they stopped. So I have not reestablished anything with Modifius Entertainment since that. So, don't know. Pete Strakolich says, Race with the Devil starring Peter Fonda was excellent for a realistic horror film. Isn't that with Ned Beatty? Isn't that where they have they're out RVing with their wives and they stumble across the satanic cult back when that was a big deal? That was a big deal back in the 70s. Chris Lundgren says their wife loves the TV movie The Langoliers. It could even be a good idea for a one-shot RPG idea. I never saw the mini series of The Langoliers. I remember reading the book and was sort of like, that was, I mean, because let's be honest, I mean, with as many books as Stephen King has written, there are some that are mwah, mwah. That's so great. But Chris also points out that the film version of Salem's Lot has a lot of changes. So here's what I understand as far as the new Salem's Lot film. So it was originally filmed to be 3 hours long, which, funny enough, is pretty much the running time of the David Soul miniseries, because figure add in all those commercial breaks. And it's also the running time of the Rob Lowe Salem's Lot miniseries. It was two-parter, if I remember correctly, almost positive. So it was supposed to be 3 hours, and I guess they cut a bunch out of it to get it to, I guess it's probably, I don't know, hour, 40 minutes, something like that runtime. So I heard that was a problem. That movie also sat on the shelf for like 2 or 3 years. So that movie's been in the can for a long time. So some discussion of other movies out there. Yeah, so Pete Strakolich says, yes, that was another one of those 70s movies. And it's not necessarily really a horror film, like, oh my gosh, it's the devil, right? Devil's banging on the door of the RV. It's more of a suspense thriller, kind of, but it's also one of those 70s movies that has that downer of an ending, which movies like that wouldn't fly these days. Yes, every once in a while you can have a movie that's, okay. All right, the ending is a downer, like say The Wrestler, or gosh, what was that? What was that movie that was just out there last year? I mean, no, actually, I think it was a couple of years ago that got I can't remember his name. Brandon. The guy was in The Mummy. Kind of brought him back, where he plays the obese guy. Another film with I did not see it, so because I was like, I don't mind having a downer ending in a movie, but I don't want a movie to be all downer. Just like Leaving Las Vegas. The acting, phenomenal, fantastic. Would I see that movie again? Absolutely not. Brendan Fraser, thank you. And The Whale, Sarah D points out. Yes, that is it. Actually, Michael Burrell and Testy Trekkie also point out The Whale. But once again, didn't see it. And it's absolutely nothing against Brendan Fraser. It's just that's not the sort of thing that I want to spend my time watching, because it's not as if I have tons of time If I were a person who just sat around watching TV all the time, yeah, I'd be like, whatever. But I don't, because I don't have that luxury. I have to be, reading stuff to get reviews out and things like that. I have to edit videos, all these other things. So Chris Longren says the movie they loved and they were scared of at the same time as a kid was Damnation Alley with the giant killer cockroaches when he was about 11 years old. I remember seeing that and I was like, it was all right. It's okay. If I remember correctly, they originally wanted to cast bigger name actors in it, but they weren't able to. And because I used to read stuff like Starlog when I was a kid. Never really read Fangoria, but I read Starlog. And I remember, this is so weird, years and years ago that there was an article about it talking about how, oh man, they had all these big plans for it. And then it was sort of like, well, we're not getting the budget we thought we were going to have. Not getting the cast we were hoping to get. W. Forge asks if anyone remembers The Car. Vaguely. I vaguely remember. Tessie Trekkie asks, how many dice is too many dice to own? Do I have my bag down here? I don't think I do. I think it's upstairs. As I pointed out before, I have a Crown Royal bag, which the Crown Royal bag is about this high. And it's about this full of dice. So I'm not a dice collector by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, this is something that was sent a couple of years ago, maybe even more than that, from Wizards of the Coast. A set of dice, which strangely enough, you would think, oh, okay, so this is Rime of the Frost Maiden. No, it's actually the dice are from the Avernus, Descent into Avernus. It's like, okay. And that's been sitting off on this side table probably since it came. So like I said, I'm not necessarily a big dice collector. In fact, usually when I've got dice that come in a game box, they just stay in the game. But like a starter set, as an example, I just leave those dice on in. Zerax Rance's first horror movie was The Incredible Melting Man. I remember Starlog writing about that one too. I never saw that movie. I think I've seen little bits of it, but I've never actually seen it. So as far as favorite horror movies, The Haunting, The Frighteners, like I said, I think that's an underappreciated classic. And it's not a kiddie movie. I think we talked about this last night. I think that simply because there's some comedy in it, and it's Michael J. Fox, the assumption was, oh, yeah, it's just a silly ghost movie. And there are some goofy things in it, but it's not. It is. I think it's R-rated, if I remember right. Weird movie, Life Force. Yes, I remember that one. I think that was the first movie I saw that I was like, oh my God, how much full frontal nudity are they going to stick into this movie? I was like, wow. It's a pretty decent movie. It's got a stupid ending. Really stupid ending. But yeah. And the funny thing is, I think around the same time, maybe even before that, I had seen Caligula. But Caligula wasn't a science fiction movie. Right? I wasn't used to seeing so much nudity in a science fiction movie. I'm not saying I complained, right? Because I certainly do remember the film quite well. like I said, I mean, up until the ending, it was fine. Special effects were, some things were good, some things weren't. That struck me as a movie that ran out of budget, which does happen, where movies start off and you're like, wow, man, oh. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, shit, we're out of money. Prime example of that is Gone with the Wind. Because if they had filmed Gone with the Wind the way they wanted to film it, it probably would have been about an hour longer than it actually eventually ended up. And I love Gone with the Wind, don't get me wrong. But you can tell it hits a point where all of a sudden it's just bang, 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 bang. It's like all these things happening like right on top of each other so that they can wrap the film up. Michael Burrell says that as far as Life Force, they didn't spend all their budget on wardrobe, obviously enough. Well, not on hers. Not on the space vampires. Day of the Triffids is some scary stuff for your little kid that lives by a cornfield. Good book, too. Really good book. Let's talk about books. So another question was, what were my favorite horror novels? And Salem's Lot, I absolutely loved. I don't think it's aged all that well. It's not bad, but I don't think it's aged as well. I think The Stand is phenomenal. In fact, I remember, I think it was the 90s, probably early 90s, when they released almost like a director's cut of The Stand. And this was after that the miniseries had come out, the first adaptation miniseries. And when I say it was after, this was years after. This wasn't like, oh, well, right on its heels. No, it was quite a long time after. And it was like all this stuff that Stephen King's editor said, I think you better take this out. As well as some modernization of the story, because that's another book that came out 79-ish, 79, 80-ish. So I remember that I read it, and I think it was clocking in at something like 1,800 pages. Because I think originally it was 1,200 pages. Maybe I'm off a little bit. Maybe it was originally 800, and then the definitive edition or whatever that came out was about 1,400, not 14 pages. Yeah, it's only 14 pages, baby. I just rocked right through that. Love that. I thought that was excellent. Once again, Shirley Jackson, great author. We've talked a little bit before about I Am Legend and Richard Matheson. I Am Legend is really nicely done. The Incredible Shrinking Man is a really good book, but that really is science fiction. It's not truly horror, whereas I Am Legend is. So that is another book that I really, really liked a lot. Peter Straub, Ghost Story, really awful adaptation for film. The reality is that would make for an excellent miniseries. But there's a bit going on that's not necessarily ever really explained. And it's supposed to be that way. So there are some unanswered questions in that novel, but really, really nicely done. I talked about when I did the episode about horror novels that would make for good role-playing game adventures. That was one of them. So W. Forge says, you have to have faith for that to work on me. Cold War Tuesday is with us. I believe it is a first-time visit in chat for Cold War Tuesday. So they caught the outing The Lamp one time on USA in the late 80s. Never heard about it again. Evil genie in a museum. High schoolers stay after hours. I am not familiar with that. Chris Lundgren points out, of course, obviously not scary, but they love Citizen Kane. I have two films that I go back and forth, which are my favorite, which is my favorite. One is Citizen Kane. And I'm just a fan of Orson Welles. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, big fat slob. Wasn't always. And, you know, he fucked himself pretty good because of Citizen Kane. If he had never made that movie, he probably would have had a far, far different career. But he just had to piss in the wrong pile, you know? It was like, Not only is it a great movie, but it is also a film that so many things that had never been done were done in that film. Things that we take for granted as far as cinematography had never been done before Citizen Kane. And a lot of it, we can credit the cinematographer, the cameraman, Greg Toland, if I remember correctly, was his name. So it's either that or it's Casablanca. And one of the reasons why I find Casablanca to be like right there in the running with being my favorite movie is because I don't know of another film whose dialogue is as perfect for the movie as Casablanca. There are a lot of lines in Casablanca that have kind of become just kind of tropes. So Round Up the Usual Suspects is a prime example. It's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Another great example. Just fantastic movie. Just an absolutely fantastic movie. And it's really funny because if you think about it, Humphrey Bogart became a major Hollywood star. He wasn't a huge star when Casablanca came out. And here you had a guy who's not traditionally handsome because he was like a sex symbol later on. So you had a guy who wasn't, I'm not saying he was a bad looking guy. He just wasn't, chiseled from, he wasn't the Cary Grant look, right? In fact, he didn't even have like a Jimmy Cagney look, who played similar characters in movies. And he also had a bit of a lisp. And it was like, wow. You would never picture that as being somebody who would become just, the biggest Hollywood star for a certain period of time. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. W. Ford says Casablanca is their favorite too. Yeah, it's just a great movie. It is just an absolutely fantastic movie. I'm shocked, I say, to find gambling going on in this establishment. Oh my gosh, as W. Forge says that. That's hysterical. So I started saying that, all of a sudden I see ding in chat pop up. You're winning, sir. Oh, thank you. Putting it away. Reek, hide me. Peter Lorre, who was a big star at that point in time, is in that movie no more than 5 minutes, maybe. It's like, holy cow. Chris Lundgren points out Rooster Cogburn, the movie, and True Grit. True Grit is an excellent book. I have to be very honest. I liked the Jeff Bridges True Grit far, far better than John Wayne's. And I'm fine with John Wayne. There's some John Wayne movies I really do like. There are others that I think he's a very overrated actor because he, for the most part, usually by the time we got into like the 60s, every character he plays, for the most part, is just John Wayne. You know, it's like, it's John Wayne playing John Wayne again. Or, you know what I mean? It's just he had this persona on screen, and that's what you were getting. That's why if you take a look at John Wayne movies, and this actually started in the late 40s, John Wayne would go out of his way to make sure that they would also cast a young, handsome co-star for his films. Because he always figured, he knew that, he was older. He wasn't gonna bring in the youngsters to see him. But they'd be like, oh, Ricky Nelson's in this? Okay, I'll go see that. Sean O'Donnell says, I think Jeff Bridges in True Grit handled the man a new style of character to play. Yes, and then now Jeff Bridges sort of plays that guy, right? He seems to pop up. I don't know what's going on with his voice either. I haven't really looked into it, but his voice has definitely changed. But anyway, Kevin R. Smith says the two True Grit adaptations are fascinating. John Wayne version is more literally faithful to the book, but the Coen brothers is truer to its spirits. And I would disagree. I found Jeff Bridges' version felt more true to the book. Although it had been a long time since I had read it. Chris Langren says one of John Wayne's best, in their opinion, was The Cowboys, little-known movie the kids made, the movie. It is also, if I remember correctly, The Cowboys is one of the few movies that John Wayne actually dies on screen. Isn't that the movie where Bruce Dern shoots him in the back? I think it is. All right, favorite horror TV shows. At one point, I think The Walking Dead was appointment TV for about the first 3 seasons of that. I know a lot of people who tuned out after, spoiler alert, Glenn was killed. In fact, I think that's when Elliot stopped watching it. And then when, what was the other? Carl. When Carl died, that was when my brother stopped watching it. I watched for a little bit more. I watched until Rick's character was gone and kind of was like, I watched up to the point where Negan's character was making kind of a shift. And then, which I don't really have an issue with that storyline, that plot line, because it is from the comic. Actually, the comic book was great. That's why it was kind of funny, because it was like, oh, people were all like, oh, I can't believe they killed Glenn. And it was like, well, it's in the comic. It's like, so, W. Ford says, never trust Leslie Nielsen to captain a vessel. Side Adventure, Forbidden Planet. Hey, at least they get off the planet. Yes, so I guess Bruce Dern does shoot the kid, or not the kid, the Duke, and took a lot of shit for it. I guess Bruce Dern and John Wayne did not get along either, is what I've also heard. Neither did he and Kirk Douglas. So, and if I remember correctly, I think John Wayne thought that Clint Eastwood couldn't act his way out of a paper bag. I don't know. I'm just saying. You know, a lot of people out there are like, oh, actors, just regular old people. Sometimes with some issues, but you know. Oh, Michael Burrell says that Leslie Nielsen doesn't make a competent detective either. Or doctor. Right? Shirley, you must be joking. No, I'm not joking. And stop calling me Shirley. That was one of those movies when I first saw it. I saw it in the theater. I think that came out the summer before I went to high school. And that was a movie that I just could not stop laughing. Could not stop. In fact, Elliot and I, on occasion, like if we're hanging out and stuff, all of a sudden we'll start throwing out just airplane lines. You and your white zone shit. Shadow Dell says neither of them are Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah, it's too bad. Although I heard Daniel Day-Lewis is going to appear in a film that's directed by his son. I think it's his son who's directing it. I was like, oh, sweet. Very cool. Very cool. Yes, fantastic actor. Absolutely fantastic. All right, horror TV shows. Like I said, Walking Dead used to be appointment TV. I thought Fear the Walking Dead, I thought it started off shitty. I was like, man, I am gonna fall asleep. Because the thing is, I mean, the city of LA at the beginning of a zombie apocalypse, it was like, how dead was it in that show? It was like, really? It's like, my God. Yeah, how cheap is the budget on this? But then when they had pretty much gotten rid of all but two of the original characters, they introduced, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the actor's name. He was in Deadwood. Fantastic show. That was also, in my opinion, appointment TV on HBO. He actually played the guy who shot and killed Wild Bill, and later on played the henchman, I guess, of Hearst. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was a former sheriff. And the actress who was on Greg and Darmo way back in the day, she was introduced. And it was like, wow, you know, this show's actually pretty damn good now. And then it right away, like a season or two later, I was like, back down in the turtlet. I don't watch any of the Walking Dead stuff. I didn't watch the one with Rick and Michonne. I haven't seen that. I haven't watched the one with Carol. Or well, actually, it's Daryl and Carol. So I don't know. If people enjoy it, that's fine. I'm not knocking them. It's just, in my opinion, I think it's run its course. Have you ever been to a Turkish prison? You ever see a grown man naked? Kevin R. Smith. I picked a good week to quit taking amphetamines. GameCat asks, do I like Gladiator? Yeah, I do. I actually do. I like Gladiator quite a lot. In fact, I used to airbrush 1/6 scale figures in that, and I would hand paint smaller scale. And I had a really nice figure of Russell Crowe from Gladiator that I had painted and I gave to somebody as a gift. And it was very well done, I must say, as I pat myself on the back. But yeah, I like Gladiator. I'm cautiously optimistic of the new one that's coming out. Everybody's saying it's pretty damn good. So we'll find out. Keep my fingers crossed. Chris Lundgren says Evil is their new favorite series on Paramount Plus. I had heard good things about it, but I don't tend to watch series that are on the networks. And when I say networks, I mean the three major free television networks here in the United States. I don't know. Do I like the vein of movies like Ben-Hur or Spartacus? Didn't really care for Ben-Hur much. I've seen it, obviously enough. In fact, I remember one of the last American Film Institute top 100 movies lists that they did. My brother and I went through it, and I had seen something like 87 of them. So, because I love film, I love movies. But do you like Gladiator movies, Joey? No, it's all right. He could stay. Yeah, what a crazy movie. What an absolutely crazy movie that is. Shadow Dow says they don't watch a lot of horror TV, but Hannibal with Mads Mikkelsen and Attack on Titan work for them. I have not seen Attack on Titan. I have heard, I think Elliot and his daughter watch it. And I had also heard Hannibal was pretty good. Pretty good. Oh, Game Cat says funny. I mean Gladiator movies, but Gladiator's okay. Yes, I get it now. I get it. Yes, it went right over my head. Okay, so last question I'll tackle is going to be something that was asked. I think it was asked by Grandpa John. And it was, what is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me? Okay, so if we're talking about, because if you've not seen the live episode that I want to say it's titled Why You Don't Fuck with Jeff. You might want to take a peek at that, because that was the situation I was in was scary, but it wasn't horrifying scary. I mean, it wasn't spooky scary. It was holy shit. There was also a time I was delivering an RV out to the West Coast, and a blizzard came blowing through, and I was in, I seem to recall, I may have been in South Dakota, and I didn't want to get stuck, because you have to keep in mind when I would deliver RVs and that you couldn't use them. You couldn't do anything in them, right? You drove it. So you couldn't use the heat or anything like that because it had to be delivered as new. So anyway, I was like, man, I don't want to get snowed in. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to shoot south and then cut west and come back up. So I started driving south and the snow hit and I was in the middle of nowhere. And there was a steep drop off 150 feet would be my guess. And I mean, the snow has really come down. And the thing was, I'm driving and it's like, okay, so there really is no space for me to pull over. And it wasn't quite a whiteout, but it was close. And I was like, okay, next exit or anything I see, next little town, whatever, I'm going to stop. And I hit a patch where the RV started to slide. And of course, I've driven enough that, when you start to fishtail, I know how to get out of a fishtail. But driving an RV, which weighed about 25,000 pounds, because it wasn't some little bitty RV. This was a big A-class RV. Fishtail, and that is a little bit different than a fishtail in a car. And I was like, I'm going to go over. I'm like, I lucked out. So that was probably the scariest moment I've ever experienced. I will point out that we lived in a house that was haunted. I think I might have told this story before. When I was about 9-ish, my parents bought a house, because prior to that, we had rented apartments. But my parents bought a house, and we moved in, and there was this elderly woman who was selling the house. And prior to us moving in, she passed away. So my parents actually closed the sale with her son. Agile Monk is popping on in. Coco B says they've been in a whiteout on a highway in North Dakota. Scary stuff. Nothing to stop that wind from whipping across. I have been in a couple of whiteouts. One was in New Mexico, strangely enough, and the other was in Wyoming, which minutes before I got to a specific location, there had been just massive wreck. It was like a bomb had gone off. Thankfully, I missed it. I was not part of it. So anyway, so the woman had passed away. My parents buy the house. We move in. Everything's fine. Everything's all good. And the house actually had a small apartment above it that we could rent out. And never any issue. We'd have people. Oh, so I point out that there was a young woman who lived in the apartment upstairs when we bought, I shouldn't say we, I had nothing to do with it. When my parents bought the house and we moved in, and she was pretty promiscuous, which that's her business, whatever, right? But she would have guys coming and going. And we had an enclosed front porch that my brother and I would hang out on. And she'd walk in, and you could go up the front steps or you could go up the back way. And she'd come in with some guy and she'd be like, hey, Well, my mom especially did not care for the revolving door. So they had informed her that they were not going to renew her lease when the lease was up. She was like, fine. So anyway, then we found out that she had been married and that she had been cheating on her husband, and he thought she had gone to some sort of work-related trip, and she had actually gone to Europe with some guy, and her husband found out about it and committed suicide in the apartment above, and nobody knew about it for a couple of weeks. And this was in the middle of summer. And finally, His brother hadn't heard from him and convinced the police to go over and be let into the apartment. And then they found him. I guess he had shot himself in the stomach. And then when that didn't finish him off fast enough, he put the gun in his mouth. So anyway, one of our neighbors who was a kid like us was talking about how he had been there the day that they actually removed the body and that. So anyway, so this woman came back from Europe, and supposedly the story was she never threw out any of the furniture, including the bed that her husband had committed suicide in. Is it true? Come on, sounds a little old wives' tale as far as I can say. So anyway, so she left. We rented the apartment to an older couple. They were in their 60s. I keep saying we. And they were there for a couple of years, and then they moved on. And then this other woman came, and she was probably in her 50s. And she had lived right down the street. And I guess my dad had asked, well, how come you're looking to move? You just live a couple of blocks from here. And she said that her sister had recently died, and her sister was visiting her at her other apartment. So she needed to move. Well, my parents were like, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah. Soon as this woman moved in, weird shit started to happen. Every night around 2 a.m., there'd be this really loud bang. And I mean, it would wake us up. And we had a dog who was an older dog. And lazy. She was a sweet dog, but lazy. That dog would never jump up on furniture, never sat on the couch, anything. She wouldn't jump up in bed or anything like that. It was a dog that kind of knew her place. This stuff started to happen, and the dog would run around the house shaking like a leaf. And she would jump up into bed with people, and she'd be just shaking like a leaf. So my dad would get up and he'd go look around, and he's thinking, is it the back door to the house slamming? What the hell's going on? And then a few moments later, we'd get another really loud bang. Never could find out what the hell was going on. And then at this point in time, I think I'm a freshman in high school, if I remember correctly. So my brother is 2.5 years older than me. So my brother was about 15, maybe 16, because he had a girlfriend. So this is one of these situations where we never talked about it with each other until after the fact. So at that point in time, my mom worked for a real estate agency, but she only worked part-time. And then she'd come home and take a nap before we got home from school. So she told us how she would come home and she'd be like just laying on the couch, and she'd hear somebody walking around upstairs in the apartment, knowing damn well that the woman who lived up there was at work. And then she would hear music playing upstairs. And she would actually walk up the steps outside the door, and she could hear it. So she thought, oh, well, maybe she's in there. Knock on the door. Nobody would answer. The music would continue, but nobody would answer. So my mom would go get the spare key, and she'd be like, oh, she'd yell out, hey, I'm coming in. I'm just checking. There wouldn't be a soul in there. And then there'd be no music. So this happened repeatedly. And then same kind of thing sort of happened when my brother was there with his girlfriend. In fact, I know for a fact that they were so scared they ended up sleeping in our basement because they kept hearing somebody walking around up there And they knew damn well there was nobody there. And this woman was odd. If my brother and I, or whatever, we were out front, somebody was out front and she came home from work, she'd go around to the back to go up to the apartment. If she was coming around the back, somebody was in the back, she'd go around to the front. And then if there were people in the front and back, let's say, summertime, barbecuing, whatever, hanging out with our friends, because I had my friends, my brother had his friends, obviously, because we weren't all that close in age. And of course, when you're in high school, it's like, I'm not hanging out with freshmen. I'm a junior, or I'm a senior. But in a case where if, somebody were in the front and back, she'd just leave and then come back later. So finally, one day she comes down and she tells my parents she has to move. And my dad asks, why? And she said her dead sister was visiting her in the apartment and she had to go. So my dad was like, yeah, okay. He let her out of the lease. And then he went upstairs to go check to see, if she was going to get her security deposit back, right? When you're someone who rents out property, you go and you charge people security deposits. And if, something's broken or, they trash the place, you're going to keep their security deposit and probably sue them, right? So anyway, my dad went up there, and when he came downstairs, because after she had moved everything out, he said, well, I don't know if her dead sisters come to visit her, because I remember as a wise ass, my dad had said, well, how do you know it's your sister? And she said, my sister wore a particular perfume, and I smell the perfume. It would just like appear. So anyway, my dad was like, I don't know, whatever. So I remember he came downstairs and he said, well, I can't tell you if her dead sister visits or not, but that apartment stinks from perfume. Now, it could have been that she was just like, I'm just trying to get out of the lease, right? Or it could have been like, oh, I always smell my sister's perfume, so I'm spraying my perfume to cover that smell. Don't know. I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, after she moved out, the bangs ended, the weirdness ended, the walking around upstairs ended. So, they talk about how, certain people are attuned to things, or certain people are catalysts for things. So the thing that we, over the years discussing, the bang followed by another bang, the only thing that we could figure was it was the gunshots, because we had been told that when the guy committed suicide, he had shot himself in the stomach. That wasn't effective. So then he put the gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Only thing we could think. So there you have it. That is the scariest thing as far as spooky. I lived in another apartment that I swore was haunted, but the only thing that would happen was cabinets would be open and like my keys and stuff would move around. And there were times I found my keys on top of the refrigerator, which there was absolutely no way I or anybody else would put keys on top of a refrigerator. But I wasn't like, there wasn't anything like, oh, I'm sleeping and somebody slapped me or, anything like that. That was more kind of playful poltergeist-ish. And it was a really old apartment complex I lived in. One that had probably been built in Chicago maybe around 1900, 1904. And funny enough, I had actually, as a small baby, had lived in the same exact apartment as when I lived there as an adult. I did not know that. I found that out later on. I knew we had lived there when I was a little baby, but I did not realize that it was it was the same exact apartment. So, Eagle Helmson says her favorite scary movie is Prince of Darkness. Yes, we talked a little bit about Prince of Darkness earlier in the show. All right, so there you go. So I have left you with a Halloween tale. Didn't really take place on Halloween. It was during a spring and summer. So it was about 7 months that that was going on while that woman lived there. But there you go. A little bit of spookiness. Pete Strackley says I'm super creeped out. All right. So one last thing I do want to mention before we wrap up. The next time you see me, it will be election day here in the U.S. Or I should say the next time you see me live, because I've got videos hitting, you'll see my mug before then. But the next time I'm going to be live is going to be election day here in the United States. I'm not telling you to vote for. You already know who I'm voting for. So I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I am telling you to vote. If you are registered to vote, vote. It is your obligation as an American to vote. And far too many people gave their lives to provide us with that privilege. And far too many people lost a lot. Maybe they didn't lose their lives, but so many people sacrificed a lot, including their lives as far as the civil rights movement, all these different things. So when I hear people go, no, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote. I mean, that actually pisses me off. So if you are registered, please vote. If you aren't registered and you live in a state where you can register even on election day, please get registered and vote. Do your duty. Perform your civil responsibility. It doesn't take that long. Even if you end up having to stand in line, it's worth it. It really is. It's not something you have to do every day. You do it pretty much once a year in most states. So, all right. Cold War Tuesday said solid real world creep out. Grandpa John says, now Jeff's really getting scary. Hey, I'm just saying, please vote. That's all. Please vote. All right, that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Yes, I am on a quest to reach 15,000 subscribers before the calendar turns to 2025. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And of course, if you do subscribe, you can always ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central here on YouTube. It'll also inform you when I share other videos, such as the upcoming review of Campaign Builder, Castles and Crowns from Cobalt Press. Stay tuned. Later on tonight, I will have my review of Creepshow, the suspense building game. That will be out as well. So like I said, I've got a lot of goodies on the horizon that'll be hitting over the next few days. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, bigger thank you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company. And of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you kindly for watching any of the over 2,000 videos here on the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Have a great week. Enjoy the weekend. Once again, I will be back on Tuesday. I have absolutely no idea what our topic is going to be, but I'll come up with something. So thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.